Hi everyone, my name is Lizzy and I have CMT. CMT is a neuropathy, which means it's a disease of the nerves. It's the most common inherited neurological disease in the world. It affects 1 in 2,500 people, but it's very rare to inherit neurological disorders. There's several types of CMT and several subtypes of CMT, which gets very confusing. Two main types are type 1 and 2. Type 1 affects the centre of the nerve. No, it doesn't. Type 1 affects the coating of the nerve. If you imagine an electrical wire, the coating of the wire in a nerve, that's called a myelin sheath. So it keeps the signals going the right way from your brain to the muscles. The other main type of CMT affects the centre of the nerve. So the actual wire itself is affected and is not doing what it should do. So the messages which travel along your central nervous system, the messages don't get to the muscles they need to. So they either get there delayed or they get there but not as strong. So when my brain wants to tell my hand to move, it just goes, no, don't want to. That's gradually got worse as I've got older. But it's got to the point now where there's literally no muscle left in my hands and in my feet and my lower legs. So there's no muscle left to waste away, but the symptoms get worse because things just get more difficult as I get older. I was able to walk until I was about 17, and then it just became too dangerous to kind of attempt to keep standing up and walking, despite wearing splints or AFOs, which went down the back of my calf and under my feet, which kind of held my foot at a right angle. So yeah, by age 17 I kind of decided that it was just not worth the kind of falling and the pain and the risk of injury. I'd broken my wrist once when I was 11, almost broke it again a few years later. Yeah, it became just not sensible to keep walking. So the symptoms I have, which I've had all my life, and have just gradually got worse as I've got older. Nowadays I have no muscle left in my hands, so these are my hands. They're very floppy and I literally have no kind of control. It just kind of, I can kind of push my hand over just by using gravity. So my upper body is the only kind of strength I have in my arms, and I sort of refer the strength from my upper body to be able to do things with my hands, but there's not actually any muscle whatsoever in my hands. So if I tried to move my fingers, I can't do anything. So I used to be able to write using a pen just with my right hand. My arms and my hands would get very tired, so I'd have to kind of swap, and I kind of taught myself to use my left hand. Not as neatly, but it was kind of did the job until I kind of got some energy back. But then even that became too difficult, so now I write using both hands together. I hold a pen kind of like this. I will make another video and show you how I write, because I write surprisingly neatly for the way I do it, and I love writing. I find it really therapeutic. But things like that I find quite difficult because I need somebody to hold paper still, or like a grippy mat to hold the paper still, because if I'm using both hands then I can't hold the paper still as well. So my feet, similar to my hands, they have no muscle whatsoever. My feet are tiny. I worked out recently they must have stopped growing when I was about 8, because my friend's daughter, who is 8, has roughly the same size feet as me, and I'm 31. So thanks CMT, I can wear children's shoes, which it has its perks because I can buy cheaper shoes, because older children these days wear pretty much the same shoes as adults wear, like pumps or dolly shoes or nice sandals. But I have problems wearing certain shoes because my feet have very high instep or high arch, which is a big sign of CMT. So somebody who didn't know they had CMT might notice that as a sign that their kind of arch of their foot has kind of become more. Generally, symptoms of CMT start in kind of later life, in adulthood, and it starts with weakness in feet, so your feet might start dropping a bit, or loss of sensation, and weakness in your hands. For me it was quite different. I'm 31 now, and I was diagnosed with CMT when I was about 3. I walked quite early. I was about 9 months old when I started walking, which is quite ironic. Then when I started running as a toddler, my mum noticed that my leg sort of flicked out a bit and didn't look quite right. So she took me to the doctors, and obviously I have no recollection of this, but lots of tests and doctor's visits and going to London and Bristol, and they diagnosed me with Charcot Marie Tooth disease, which of course is inherited. So they then discovered through other tests that my mum passed it down to me, but she hasn't got any symptoms, she's just a carrier. So my gran has the disease. My gran is 76, I think. No, yeah, I think she's 76. She's still able to walk around. She uses a walking stick, and she can't walk for very long because she gets quite tired, and she also wears supports on her ankles if she's going to be out walking. We never really knew why my case was so severe. It was only until we had some more tests done when I was older, and we had both sides of my family tested. We then discovered that I'd inherited a fault on a certain gene from both sides of my family, which would never happen. It's just 1 in a million chance, because you inherit obviously half your DNA from your mum and half from your dad. So I inherited a fault on half of this mitofusin 2 gene, which is shortened to MFN2. I've basically got a double dose of CMT. Aren't I lucky? So it's very, very rare. To inherit a neurological disorder is rare in itself. So to then inherit 2 doses of the same neurological disorder in 2 different ways is extremely rare. So I don't know what the chances are of inheriting my severity, but it's not very common. So that was the reason my disease is so severe, and neither of my parents have any symptoms. The other symptom that I have, which nobody else in my family has, is vocal cord paralysis. So in your vocal cords you have 2 flaps which kind of come together to vibrate and make noise. So they're apart when you're breathing, and they come together to make noise when you talk. So they kind of meet in the middle. Whereas in my vocal cords, in my throat, one side just doesn't want to move, so the other side has to move even further to meet the other side to be able to make a noise. Hence why I can't talk very loudly. I have a very husky, kind of airy, wispy voice. Can't stand the sound of my voice, and everyone says, "Oh, I don't like the sound of my voice." Or if they hear themselves on camera, most people say, "Oh, is that how I sound?" That's not how I sound. When I hear myself back, it makes me like, ugh, I hate it. I don't understand how I actually sound like that. Well, I do understand, because my vocal cords don't work properly. I hate it. I can't stand the sound of my own voice. And now I've started vlogging, it's like flooding this phobia of not liking my own voice. So I have to watch myself back, which I hate, and I have to listen back to myself, which I hate even more. So if you ever watch a video of mine and you can't hear me very well, that's why. I have a lot of problems with people hearing me. I get asked all the time, "Oh, have you got a cold, or have you got a sore throat?" And every time I have to say, "No, it's just how I sound." And then they're like, "Oh, okay, you sound tired. Are you still in bed?" That's my favourite one. I spoke to somebody the other day, and I think I was booking an appointment for my daughter, and she said, "Oh, are you still in bed? Sorry if I caught you at a bad time." I was like, "No, I'm up, I'm dressed," just because I sound like I'm half asleep, apparently. Alongside my vocal cord paralysis, I also suffer with a weak chest. So if I have a cough, I find it quite hard to cough effectively. If I ever get a cold or a chest infection, it goes on for quite a while, and I have to have antibiotics to keep it under control. And when I talk, I have to clear my throat a lot. Recording this video is probably the most I've talked, so my voice is getting really dry at the moment. I'll probably have to stop talking soon because it will start going really raspy. I say quite a lot, as you may have been able to tell, because I think because of my vocal cord paralysis, I feel like I need to rush what I say just to get it done and get it said. So I talk very fast, which I shouldn't do. Everyone tells me I talk fast. So this video is mainly just to talk about how CMT affects me personally, Obviously my case is much more severe than most cases of CMT, so if you have CMT you probably don't have it as severe as I do, although if you do, let me know, because I hardly ever meet anyone with CMT as severe as I do, as I have it. I came across somebody on YouTube recently who did a couple of videos about how she does things like makeup, and I'd never seen anybody with hands and arms like mine, and I found it fascinating. So, because everyone else that I know who's got CMT has either only just started using a wheelchair because they've found it just too tricky to walk, or they're older than me, much older than me, and have got weakness in their legs and arms. I very rarely come across anyone who has CMT to the degree that I do. I have 3 children, so I would have passed on half of my mitofusin 2 gene, which everyone passes on half of their mitofusin 2 gene, but obviously both my halves have a fault on them, so I would have passed on one fault to all of my children. Which fault that is, I don't know, so it could have been the fault that I inherited from my mum, or the fault that I inherited from my dad, and we don't know which fault they would inherit until if we ever get them tested. My children are 6.5, almost 4 and 1. They currently have no symptoms, but if they did have symptoms, we can only hope that they'll either be a carrier, which means they'll just hold the information of CMT in their gene, or the fault they inherit from me may mean that they have symptoms of CMT, but if they do have it, it hopefully will be later on in their life, because currently they are completely symptom-free. If they can live most of their life symptom-free, then that's what anyone would want. CMT is not a fun disease to have. It's painful, it's tiring, it's frustrating, because you can kind of feel your body just losing its strength and its kind of coordination. There's also sensory loss with CMT, because it obviously affects the nerves, which is how you feel things. So I can still feel in my hands and feet, but in my feet and lower legs my sensitivity is reduced. Not much, but it's less than what it should be. In the winter and, well, to be honest, throughout the year my feet are cold all of the time, so my circulation is not good in my feet. I have to rely on taking nifedipine tablets, which open up your blood vessels, so it allows the blood to circulate in my extremities, so in my hands and feet more. They don't work as well as I hope they would, but whilst I'm still breastfeeding my youngest child, I can't take too much of a high dose of that. So after I've stopped breastfeeding, I might be able to take a higher dose, which might improve the circulation more. So now I've been talking for quite a while, you can hear my voice is probably sounding worse than it was when I first started this video. So as far as the future is concerned, I don't really know how much worse my CMT is going to get. As I said, there's no muscle left to waste away in my hands because it's non-existent. As I get older, as my joints get worse because of not walking and moving around, moving becomes more difficult for me. So I use a wheelchair for all of the day, unless I'm sitting on the sofa or in the car. I have an electric wheelchair and a manual wheelchair. I prefer to be in my manual wheelchair because it gives me more kind of manoeuvrability, but if I was to go shopping out and about, I'd use my electric because it means I can go up and down hills by myself and not have to rely on somebody pushing me. Using my manual wheelchair is okay if I'm indoors or on smooth surfaces, because obviously I have no grip in my hands. I have to have the hair attached to my hands. I have to have rubber hand rims on my manual wheelchair, which means I can push myself a bit more easily than if it was just a metal hand rim, which is what you would normally get on a manual wheelchair. In the winter, my feet and legs are freezing all the time. I wear multiple layers of socks and boots, and still they remain cold. It's getting really bright outside. So I hope you've enjoyed this little insight into what CMT is and how it affects somebody. If you want to give it a thumbs up, that would be really appreciated. And if you want to stick around and follow my other adventures and family life and whatever else I blog about, don't forget to click subscribe. If you want to follow me on other social media, I will leave my links in the description. If you think you might have CMT, or you're waiting for a diagnosis and you've been told about CMT, I hope you found this helpful and not too scary. You probably won't have it as severe as me, so don't worry about that. But if you do have it as severe as me or whatever, please get in touch. I'd love to chat to you and share experiences and any advice or support I can give, especially if you're a disabled mum, because you don't come across disabled mums very often, and I know from personal experiences there's not a lot of information out there. So please leave me a comment down below, and I would love to hear what you thought of this video, and I will try and reply to every comment I get. If you're in the UK, there's a Charcot Marie Tooth CMT charity called Charcot Marie Tooth UK. If you're in America, there's the CMT Association, so check out both of their channels and pages and websites. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it's a bit long and waffly. I tend to ramble quite a lot and I can't stop it. So I think that's it for now, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.